So education in any country is an important tool for the development process of that particular nation. There are various factors that influence national systems of education. They range from social, economic, technological, to political influences. I'm just giving like a summary of the things that affect education: the social, the economic, the technological, and the political influences. So a national system of education of any country can be defined from the perspective of formal education. This incorporates early childhood education, the primary, the secondary, the tertiary, and the universities. They are important stages of developing the education system in a country. A writer by the name Michael Sadler, who lived between 1886 and 1943, noted that in studying foreign systems of education, we should not forget that the things outside the school matters even more than the things inside the school. And in most cases, they actually govern and interpret the things inside the school. I captured this to help you understand where we are headed. How does societal issues influence the education? And let me again quote him. He said that the things outside the school matters even more than the things inside the school. So, where are children mostly influenced? Is it in the school or outside? While it is true, schools form children. Where children come from, the kind of society they come from, actually influences children more than what happens inside the school. In simple terms, he meant that for one to understand a national system of education, it is important then to note the cultural issues, the communal issues around a child. Let me move a little faster. Now, we say that one of the things that affect education is politics. So the political philosophy of a country has impact on education. The political factor dictates the type of administrative system of education you're going to adopt. And I don't need to go into the history. If you look at the colonizers, the system of education that they brought to the Africans was for whose purpose? Was it for the Africans or was it for the colonizers? It was for the colonizers. They needed people to work in the farms. They needed people who would write things down. Therefore, political systems are the ones that dictate the form of education that we have. And you can actually look at the 844 system, for example. It was brought during the Moise era for a certain purpose. And we struggled with it for such a long time. And then later, it was changed. Again, now it has been changed. What necessitated change? Mostly, it was not the society. It was political, isn't it? First and foremost. And I'm going to come to it. I saw you clapping very quickly when the CS was here. And me, I wasn't clapping. Because I was asking, why are you getting entertained too quickly? He's only doing his political job. He may say the politicians are not here. But when you talk of governments of the Jubilee, you're talking of a political system that wants some type of education system for a certain purpose. There is no neutral education system. All education systems are political. Unfortunately so, especially in the third world. And I'm going to compare shortly the education system between the third world and the first world. and you'll see the difference. So Isaac Kindle, 1881 to 1965, emphasizes the importance of the national character in shaping national systems of education. We need stability in education systems, and they need to be guaranteed. Now, one of the fears you and me have, and even C.S. Magoha had it because I was seated behind there, is that we don't know what will happen with CBC come August. Did you hear something like that? It didn't come out very strongly, but he said, I hope. When you hear him say, I hope, it is because when Wajakoya comes, did I just say Wajakoya? Natasha cannot say that. And you know now I hear there is a plant that we need to plant and it can make Kenya very rich. You have been looking for it. Like, where can I get it? That can make us all rich. I also hear that hyenas are in trouble. You've even had others who have said, when we come, we are going to review that system. Now, that is dangerous for education. And please don't get entertained. The private schools, if today you close to your schools, it will bring the education system in this country to a halt. That's how important you are. So how do you get entertained by our politicians? You can tell them, okay, if you take that route, no schools. They don't have the capacity to do that. And we need to be as radical as so. Now, I say that stability in education system needs to be guaranteed. You can change content to address the needs of the time, but the system needs to be maintained. Did you hear that? Why is it that for a long time Britain has continued to use the IGCSE system, the Cambridge system? Why? When did Britain change the education system? It has been there, isn't it? It has been Cambridge. What they do, the content can change to address the market need. It is market driven. However, the system is the same, whether we have Labour Party coming or not. We need to secure education system and say this is not about politics, it's about our children, and remain with it. Otherwise, this change and change and change, sooner we will have those kind of manifestos that we are reading that are funny, that are exciting Kenyans about weed and other things. We shouldn't allow the politics of our time to influence education, especially negatively. And therefore, the emphasis is on the importance of the country national character in shaping national systems of education. There is a close relationship between national character and national system of education. I checked today, what are the values or the core values of Kenya? And you can go online. What are those ethos that hold this nation? And some of them are wonderful. In fact, there are about 18 of them. And I said, I wish we teach this in our schools. Why? Because there is a close relationship between the national character and the national system of education. In education, when you teach only to deal with the intellectual part of the child's development, but you don't change their ethos, then those children are in conflict because the society will influence them more than the school. For example, the national character of USA is democratic. So even in their school system, what do you see? Democracy. It is actually enshrined in them. That's why they can differ politically, but they don't need to fight. Try in Kenya. What does the society teach you? That this is a person from another community. They are not good. They are thieves. They are this. Even if you had the best education system, the society actually influences the children more. And so, what is the Kenyan system? What do we teach our children? And you know, we teach them in a very subtle manner. For example, when somebody says, Wado Wahiti, you know that proverb. They say that the law of the hyena is take what does they say? I'm trying to interpret. You know, it's a nice way of saying, you know hyenas with stealing. Don't go hyenas with other things you're thinking about. Hyenas are quick in stealing. So it's a good way of saying that one of the laws of the hyenas is grab and go with whatever you have. Now that is a philosophy. If you teach it to your children, if we teach it as a community, if we teach it as a nation in the society, even if you have the best education system, unfortunately. And that's why in Kenya, and I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about others, we are all thieves minus opportunity. We are all thieves minus the one that calls the other thief. He's the thief. The only thing he doesn't have is a what? Opportunity. There's a lot of stealing in Kenya. It has become our culture. You don't need to be an MP or a president to steal. You can steal anywhere. Because you have moved from being human to being hyenas. Because we are using a hyena law. When did we become animals? That we forgot that we are intellectual people, made in the image of God and His likeness, and we can say no to ungodliness. So education is key to developing the nation. For it to be effective, it should be clearly be defined, legislated, protected, owned by stakeholders, financed and reviewed to ensure that it is in harmony with the local and the global needs of the society. I should have had an amen. Amen. Yeah, we must fuse what the community teaches with what the schools teaches so that we grow a holistic person. Now, because I've seen the guy next to me here, let me give you like 6 areas in the society that are affecting education. Number 1, the emerging families, or the types of emerging families and their respective needs. The rich versus the poor families. Complete versus single parenthood. The family crisis is underpinned by man. And here man, I don't mean the generic man, I mean the masculine man, losing his control in leadership and him losing his focus on God. The primary role of a man in the society is to be a provider, but also to be a protector and a moral keeper. Even provision was subject to provision. So since the community is made up of families, not individuals, the brokenness of families is affecting your education. The plan is to restore man back to his place. Heal the family, and then we will heal our education system and subsequently heal the nation. Everything else is just addressing the systems. Let me ask you, as the directors of schools, whom are you producing? Have you ever taken a survey? Because surveys are important. The empirical data you get and interpreted them well can tell you the kind of children you produce. How do owners of private schools appreciate these diversities and dichotomies? Where are the centers for moral values in our society? And one of the things that I would urge you, as you produce the best academicians in the country, please also produce people with morality. Otherwise, you are producing educated thieves. Ask me or tell me, how does a house collapse and there was an engineer? Is that an engineer? It's an educated thief. When somebody dies in hospital because of negligence, was that a doctor? It was an educated thief. As you produce people that are educated, please let your schools be moral value centers that can shape the society. The second matter is the commercial motivation in our schools versus the provision of quality education. There is a concern that some private schools are keen to making profits, but careless in safeguarding the quality. What values drive your management as a private school? That's a personal question to ask yourself. What moral values drive your management of the school, of the private schools? And let me say this, and I'm saying this graciously. I have visited some schools, and you can't compare the way the director lives and the way that teachers live. They drive the state-of-the-art cars. But when you look at the principal, they are poorly paid. When you look at the teachers, they are very, very poorly paid. There was a school my son was in. And whenever I went, I would find new teachers. And I asked why. The turnover was so high. And these teachers would be gotten from the rural parts. It's a Nairobi school. The teachers would look unkempt, looking poor, yet the directors are living the highest life. And that's why I'm asking you, and I'm doing this as a religious leader. What are the values that guide your school? If you come to All Saints Cathedral, and I would like you to see the school where I direct, the principal, actually many people think he's the provost. I poached him from one of your schools. Nice guy. I gave him a good pay. And I told him, I will support you. No, supporting. We are, even today.
Stealing. He didn't steal. He poached.
And the question here we are asking is, if you look at the directors and look at the teachers, can it be compared, or they live in different worlds? How do you expect them to wake up early, to come on matatus, in a very good school, live in some mabati shanties, not eat very well because of very poor pay, and then you expect them to produce? Even if they did, surely they only gave you the academic, not the moral value. The third one is the malpractice to enhance good performance. Some registered students in different schools to appear to outdo their competitors. That is immoral. You don't need your name in the newspaper for you to be the best school. I wish you'd produce people with morality. That's how a nation is made. The fourth one is high levels of poverty in the community. I don't have time to address this. But can I tell you something I do that I would encourage you to do? As you make profits, can you say, 10% of the profits you make goes to identify poor children in your society. You educate them from primary to secondary. By the way, let me tell you, giving doesn't make us poor. If every school director here would say 10% of the money that I make, I'm going to identify 10, 20 children from the community, give them good life. Let me tell you, how many schools are there in Kenya which are private? 10,000 times 10. What is that? 10 times 10? 100,000 children will be taken care of you at no cost. The All Saints Cathedral, not school, but now the church. 10% of all the money we get go to the poor. And we are, if you're only producing for Kenya, soon we will have too many, and therefore there will be no effect. And people will be educated, but very poor. We must produce children who are also for the global market. Let me give this as my final comment, and then I'll stop. We need to identify all the stakeholders in education. The teachers, the students, the local community, the church or the religious institutions, so that together we can produce a wholesome student or pupil for Kenya and the world. Education, if you produce children who are very sharp academically, they will get jobs in Kenya and globally. They will. But their values will sustain them in that particular job. Otherwise, you'll be having Kenyans who are getting employed, but they cannot sustain their jobs because they lack values.